So here at the Florida chapter meeting, you never know who you are going to find. And here we found a UL individual who traverses, I mean, he is completely out of his element. He's out of Arizona, Phoenix, all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, spent some time in Chicago.
No, that's the home office where I'm based out of.
Okay, but you used to live somewhere else other than
Many places. I've lived in Minnesota for 10 years. I lived in Springfield, Illinois for a couple of years. Grew up in Maine as a kid until I was 15.
Okay.
Then the time I spent with Uncle Sam, I spent time in
thank you for your service.
Fort Irwin, California. I spent time in Fort Leonard Wood, Lost in the Woods, Missouri. I spent time at Fort Benning, Georgia, and I got 3 years in Europe.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So you are with UL. This is Jeff Fecteau.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here at the Florida chapter meeting.
Because I was asked to be here.
Excellent.
So, no, just those that don't know me. I got about 16 plus years wearing the tools as an industrial commercial electrician in Metro Phoenix. I wore the tools for 2 years in Springfield, Illinois. I got 8 years as a senior electrical inspector for the city of Peoria, 2 years as a building inspector 3 for the city of Bloomington, Illinois, a couple of years at NEMA, and I'm going into my 16th year here at UL with Codes and Regulatory Services.
Awesome. So from a UL perspective, you get engaged with the IAEI considerably, don't you?
Yes, that's part of Codes and Regulatory. We interface with the AHJs quite a bit. We're here to support them and help them understand codes and standards requirements, how the standards help supplement the codes, how the codes require product certification, and how all that interacts.
How long have you been a member of IAEI and been involved with IAEI?
Oh, God. Yeah, probably since, I'm going to guess, somewhere around 95 or 96. Mike Johnston was one of my mentors, and he found me as an electrician and convinced me to be an inspector and got me into the IAEI program. So.
That's absolutely awesome. And that's when I think Mike Johnston back in the day was the education chair, or worked for the IO, covering the education, sort of what Keith Laughlin and now Jody Wade just did.
Prior to that, he was with the city of Phoenix as an inspector.
Right, yeah.
That's where him and I ran into each other.
Okay. Was it a good run into?
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm where I am today, because he thought I was worth taking under his wing and teaching things to do. So,
and
yes.
that is, in my opinion, what the IAEI does from an industry perspective, bringing people together, educating together, and then growing our careers together.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Mike, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today. But after Mike got me introduced to IAEI, that's really what pushed my career, my drive to get inspection certifications. I got 23 of those, including certified building official.
Jeez.
And he just drove me to really get into the codes. He's the one that got me into teaching. He started co-teaching with me until he felt I was able to be kicked out of the nest, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. So now you get tapped on the shoulder from various chapters who are looking for talent on different topics to present.
Yep.
What was what were you involved with here at the Florida chapter? What did you present?
Here they asked me to co-present with a couple of different people. We covered the changes in the 2020 for Code Making Panel 4, Code Making Panel 18.
Okay.
And there was one other one I was involved in. I can't remember exactly which code panel that was. But I get tapped quite often to do different code changes or different code requirements.
Are you involved with the development of the code?
Yeah. This last cycle for the 23, I was on CMP 8.
Okay.
For the 2020, I was on CMP 9. Prior to actually being a code panel member, I would attend the NFPA annual meetings and listen in on the code changes and be a bug on the wall and text people questions during the hearings.
Okay.
And
all right, so I'm going to throw a curveball at you. This is on the spot. It's live, but we're recording it. In your opinion, what do you think the top 3 code changes in the 2023 code cycle are?
Top 3. Well, they've expanded the field evaluation parts.
Ooh, yes.
So the NEC didn't, until 2020, they didn't really talk much about field evaluation. It was always a alternate method of material that the NEC or the code authority would have to use special permission under 90.4 in determining equivalency. And they touched a little bit on it in the 2020, but they've really expanded that. The other one would probably be the requirements of reconditioned equipment.
Oh, yeah.
When they went ahead and took all the definitions and moved them into Article 100 for the 23, the articles that had a .2 section, if those sections now address reconditioning of equipment, you can find that in the .2 section.
Yeah, I like
so a lot of people don't understand the sequencing of the NEC, that it really does have a rhythm to it.
Right.
For example, in this case, .2 is now going to be reconditioned equipment. .6 throughout the code generally would cover any listing requirements.
Right.
.10 and .12 are permitted uses not permitted if they're applicable. .30 covers supporting. 100 covers construction requirements. So if you know you're looking for one of those sections, you just got to go to the right article, and that dot section is going to get you the information you need.
Yeah. Tell me that's not freaking cool. That's awesome. I mean, you know, I was telling Vince and others today how, you know, going to these meetings, when you just rattled it off, I'm going to watch this video again and I'm going to write those down because I didn't realize some of those were dedicated. But you are right. I mean, I can remember, I know a couple of those, but I never really thought about it across the board. Those are little tricks of the trade that from navigating the book and understanding the code. And I love the rhythm.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's a rhythm and blues when you listen. I love it.
Yeah, and then for number 3, oh God. Well, they reorganized all the 1,000-volt stuff, so that helped clean it up.
Yeah, medium voltage.
Yeah, so anything over 1,000 volts has been helpfully
And there's
cleaned up.
much more to come on that.
Yeah. So I think that's a good place to go. Yeah. They took out, what was it, the microgrid chapter 712.
Oh yeah.
712 was a short-lived article.
It was DC microgrid.
Yeah.
And I think the conversation was, look, you can have an AC microgrid too.
Yeah. So people are going to think that doesn't exist anymore because they got that 712 for a cycle. And then they go, look, it's gone. But all they did was redistribute it throughout the other articles. That appropriately where microgrid interface applications apply.
Exactly. Now, from a listing perspective, one of the changes I know Panel 10 did in 2023 was they made circuit breakers and fuses required to be listed, which many of us in the industry thought they were already required to be listed, but they weren't.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting thing, especially from the 2020. Yeah. Because the 2020 required if you reconditioned power circuit breakers, they had to be listed. But if you bought them new, they didn't.
Right. So I thought that was just hilarious. I'm like, okay, we got a requirement. If you recondition, it's required to be listed, but buy a brand new one. It's not up there.
Yeah. So that, and they brought in some listing requirements that everybody assumes was there for GFCIs.
GFCIs and AFCIs as well.
Yep. So none of that was really required to be listed, but you weren't going to find a legitimate product that wasn't already listed.
Exactly. And how an AHJ would use that, because I get that question a lot. When you have a product, whether it be an assembly or a product that is not a listed product, the AHJ has to approve it.
Yeah.
And they take that responsibility on. So if you get I always use the term Van Ducky. So you get a Van Ducky, right? And you say, well, this Van Ducky is supposed to, I don't know, do all of your energy management. And you go, oh, okay, so this Van Ducky does energy management, and it's an assembly, it's got all these components. Well, how does the AHJ say that it is okay? Now, they may look at it and say, okay, I'm going to approve this, or they can get an organization to come in and do a field evaluation.
Yeah. So that, again, leads back to what we said earlier.
Right.
That 2023 has a lot of subsections throughout, mostly the alternative energy sections, but not limited to them, where it does offer either listed or field evaluated. And there's definitions, obviously, in 100 that talk about a field evaluation body and what a field applied label is. So they go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, and if you're a field evaluation body, there's an NFPA standard that gives you guidance on what a field evaluation body is.
Yeah, so there's a pair of documents, 791 and 790. So NFPA 790 is the competency part of it,
right?
And NFPA 791 is here's how you do it. Here's the rules everybody has to play by.
Right.
And where you get the requirement to enforce those documents, that comes out of ICC, their IAS program, their International Accreditation Service. and they accredit field evaluation bodies, and there's roughly 15 or 16. So
It doesn't have to be a nationally recognized testing laboratory?
that's actually a misconception.
Oh, wow.
So a nationally recognized testing lab, we list. Now UL is unique, and we're a SDO, we're a standards development organization. We write a lot of standards. We're a NRTL, we're a nationally recognized testing lab accredited through OSHA. And we're accredited as a field evaluation body through ICC, their IAS program.
Interesting.
So listed isn't equal to field evaluation, or vice versa. I should say the other way around.
Right.
Listing goes through destructive testing, and that's what OSHA regulates.
Right.
That's what OSHA in 1910, subpart S, talks about. You have to have listed equipment, and they're going to cite owners of property if somebody gets injured and they don't have the listed equipment in place. So that's through the federal government.
Right.
The field evaluation is not factory testing. There's no factory follow-up. It's usually a one and done type application. And so just because you're an NRTL doesn't necessarily qualify you to do field evaluation.
Right.
So IAS through the ICC came up with this program, I don't know, maybe about a decade ago. And certain NRTLs are also FEBs, but there's companies that are FEBs that aren't NRTLs.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they establish a credential that they can go do field evaluations, and your credentials through the IAS program identify what equipment you've been accredited to certify to.
Yeah.
And it's not destructive testing, it's more of an inspection where a field engineer goes out and per the 790 and 791 documents that your ICC accreditation requires you to use, even though one of them is a recommended practice, the accreditation says it's mandatory.
Okay.
And so those require you to evaluate to the appropriate product standard for that equipment. Sometimes it's more than one, depending on the type of equipment.
Yep.
And there has to be a report, there has to be pictures, there has to identify any deficiencies, how they were corrected. And after it's all said and done, one of the key factors is the field value or the field evaluated label can only be installed at the final site of installation. So you can do a preliminary offsite with AHJ permission,
Right.
which is good. It helps everybody because it's done at the factory most cases, where they got the right equipment and the materials to properly fix any deficiencies.
Right.
But then when they ship it to the final site, that's when the inspector goes back, the field engineer goes back, verifies that the corrections were done. One of the things they have to take into consideration is its environment. So field evaluations are generally site specific.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
And they make sure that it's installed in an environment that's not going to be adversary to the equipment.
Right.
And then if it meets all those requirements per the standard, they sign off on it, they put a field evaluated label on it, and then they provide the AHJ and the customer a copy of that document.
That's pretty
And then the AHJ reviews it, and if they feel comfortable with it, then they approve it.
Yeah.
So there's a misconception with unlisted equipment. You'll hear many people in the industry tell you, and it's a true statement, that the NEC doesn't require everything to be listed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
However, it does require everything to be approved.
That's 110.2. 2. Yes.
So I like to use 90.7 and 110.3A.
Yeah.
And I will explain that 90.7 is your get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Because 90.7 says an AHJ can base their approval on product certification, pretty much a listing, but now we can probably extend that to field evaluations as well.
That's right. Yep.
And so if they do that, they've done their due diligence. They're saying, hey, I based my approval because this agency says it's safe.
Right. And they've evaluated.
And they've evaluated it for the known hazards.
Right.
And if it's not listed and an AHJ chooses to approve it, which they can, they have that authority.
Yep.
But they got to pay close attention to 110.3A and read 110.3A in its entirety. And it starts out saying that whoever that inspector is shall evaluate.
Yeah.
Shall being a mandatory term.
That's right.
And so if they don't base their approval on listing or field evaluation, then they're taking ownership that they're personally evaluated that piece of equipment.
That's right. And that's a lot of responsibility because you know as well as I do, there are, like you said it earlier, there's sometimes multiple standards associated with one product.
Yeah. And inspectors, and myself included, I like to think I'm knowledgeable, but I don't have the knowledge to do that kind of stuff. Now I have access to the standards. one of the things UL does, and one of the things that's required out of the 790 document, FPA 790, is whoever's doing the field evaluation has to be competent with whatever standards they're using.
Right.
So similar to my inspection certifications or any AHJs that have certifications, UL requires our field engineers to take certification tests on whatever standards that they are going to be accredited to do field evaluations.
Cool.
And any AHJ can ask for that information, and that's part of the 790 NFPA document. So if you, as an AHJ, have a field inspection or a field evaluation,
Yep.
and something just doesn't feel right, even before you approve them, you can ask, hey, show me the credentials of the person you're going to send out here, because
Right, yeah.
NFPA 790 says they have to be accredited or have competency with whatever standards they're going to use.
That's pretty awesome.
So
That's pretty cool. Right. So I love those. I love all of those. And there are a lot more that the 2023 code has to offer. But right off that was an impromptu off the top of your head. Great job. I appreciate it.
thank you. Anytime I can help you know that, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate what you do for the industry. And I don't know if everybody out there knows how much personal time you and others devote to the industry, to IAEI, for the betterment of the industry for electrical safety. And so I appreciate all that you do.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And just real quick, for those out there, even if you don't know me, you probably know one of my counterparts.
Yes.
We have John Tacker, we have Chris Jensen, we have Steve Jones, we have
Lichtenstein?
Yeah, Tom Lichtenstein covers the Midwest.
Yep.
And we have Andrew Potier, who covers Canada for us. And we have Michael Hofkin that covers the Northeast for us.
Yeah.
So if you're in one of those areas, the Northeast, you're going to probably know Michael Hofkin and reach out to him. He's my counterpart. He can help you as much as I can. If you're in the Southeast, that's me. Most of you should know me already. I'm pretty well known in the Southeast. If you're in the Midwest, that's Tom Lichtenstein. If you're in the Northwest, that's Chris Jensen. And if you're in the Southwest, that's Steve Jones.
Wow.
And then John Tacker dabbles a little bit. He's from the Southwest too.
Yeah.
But he's on the mechanical side. So we don't just do electrical in our group. We do fire, building, plumbing, mechanical. If you got any of those code questions or standards, feel free to reach out to us.
Absolutely. Wealth of knowledge, wealth of information, all available because of your partnerships with IAEI. So get out there and be a member. And I appreciate it for you watching the channel and all that jazz. So cool beans, brother. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Cool beans.